Welcome to Season 19, Episode 1 of the Savage Worlds GM Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. Tonight's episode, free-for-all again. There's only so much we can talk about before SWADE officially comes out to everybody, so live with it. We're going to be taking live questions from chat as we go along, so if you're watching the stream live, feel free to comment, and we will go ahead and discuss, bring those into the show. If you want to follow us on social media, we're at Twitter and on Facebook, SWGM Podcast. Drop by the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. Actually, currently updated to SWGM Podcast to match. If you like what we do, follow us on Patreon, throw us a buck, support the show. Patreon.com/SWGM Podcast. And last but certainly not least, iTunes. iTunes podcast store. Find us at itunes.com/Savage Worlds GM Podcast. So tonight's free for all. Here to discuss it as per usual. Chris, the Savage Mommy Fox.
Oh, for the love of God, send us questions so we have something to talk about.
Oh, we had stuff to talk about. Dave, the Rules, Maven Scott.
So I can't talk about that. I can't talk about what can I talk about?
And
NDA.
And Dustin, the Savage Zealot Smith.
I'm waiting for Godot. Gal Gadot.
Okay, so like we said, tonight's free for all. Let's start the free for all conversation with this: $524,170 fucking dollars.
It's gonna buy a lot of chicken dinners.
Shane's got 2 boys he's trying to put through college. Give the guy a break.
To be fair, Shane's
amazing, right?
Direct about this though. Like they're gonna take a pretty big hit on the chin because of the sheer number of stretch goals. That is, they're giving away, 3 full product lines worth of stuff on top of just the physical, the acrylic blast templates, all the additional art for all the extra one-sheets they're doing, the gear cards. I mean, just the phenomenal number of things they kept adding on as this thing went on. That stuff's expensive, folks.
Yeah. A lot of work went into that, and a lot of work is going to have to go into making further products. I'm happy because I'm really excited about some of the things that are coming out, but I'm a little shocked that they're pretty much giving away everything that came before now.
To a certain extent, that's the way it feels, yeah. Although it's mostly Deadlands.
Yeah.
Like we didn't get Weird Wars, we're not getting Lankmar or anything like that, It's mostly Deadlands, which is also, as I understand it, the first thing getting redone internally.
Yep. I was about to say that. I was waiting to see if somebody else was going to. Yeah, they're giving that stuff away, but here comes a new Deadlands sometime this year.
That's it. This is what we call a taste. It gets you wanting the SWADE version.
Right, yes.
The first hit's free, kids.
That's right. But yeah, I mean, still, even with all that, I mean, just that number's amazing.
Yeah.
That number's amazing. I'm very happy for them. I know they'll do good things. I know they'll do good things with what they have and with how much they got. So I ain't worried. It's going to be good.
I want to be the first to congratulate Clint. Good luck on requesting that raise.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going over 500, half a billion.
I hear his raises in pancakes at IHOP, which maybe isn't as validating a raise as he was expecting. But no, it's definitely a time for the entire community to kind of take that step back and go, because we all rallied around the company so that they can continue to release the stuff we all love. And, it's not just phenomenal stuff from them, but it's also the fact that, we all are going to demand so much of PEG over the next couple of years as we all go, hey, you got any more of that Savage Riffs?
I don't know if it's possible to actually talk Kevin Simbita that far into like doing more, but whatever worked before in the past, maybe we could send them cookies or something.
So Art, Chris, go ahead and read off what Art threw up in the.
We just said, sorry, said who would be okay if they cut out some of the stretch goals to lessen the burden on Peg. My thought on that is, I'd like to think people would do that, but you cut oh my God, people would just be up in arms and complaining, and oh my God, they did not give us what they said. Oh my God, they said they were going to do this and now they're cheating us. I don't think it would work.
Yeah, I don't think you could get the widespread appeal. I think the diehards absolutely would be completely okay.
Right.
I had said early on that if they had never added a stretch goal past the ones that were blown out in the first hour, like the initial day's stretch goals that were listed were done in an hour. If they had never added another stretch goal, it still would have been a $500,000 Kickstarter, because Savages didn't back this because they're getting a one sheet for Deadlands Dark Ages, or right, because they're getting, an extra special art piece for a Fireball version of the Burst template and things like that. No, the Savages backed it because they all want to play SWADE.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So this brings up an interesting topic we can kind of touch on briefly. What do you guys think about Edition Wars? Is this going to be a situation where you're going to have people, complaining about the new edition like it's,
yes,
D&D 4.0?
Yes, you will. Yes, you will, because that's the nature of gamers and that's the nature of people online. I can't be all happy feeling. Go, oh no, everybody will be just fine.
I have three
people
words.
People are already bitching about stuff that he put out as previews. Well, you should be doing this, and you should be doing this, and you should do this, that, and the other. And he's like, no, we're happy with what we have. Take a look at it. You don't have the full context. Deal with it.
I have three words that encapsulates that, and unfortunately, I know this is gonna either piss off or shut up Chris. New Shaken Rule. That topic is still talked about with the word new involved. Of course, you're gonna have people who, claim the old version is better. And to be fair, and this is one of those things that I have to be careful how I phrase this, the people who have seen the whole book are doing the same thing the people who haven't seen the book are doing, and nitpicking little things about the system's changes that they personally don't like.
And that's annoying.
Without actually putting the effort in to put enough playtesting on it to understand how it all works. Again, just like we always say, play the game first. And unfortunately, even the people who have that behind-the-scenes look have only had that for a very short period of time and don't have the hours of playtesting that the actual playtesters and PEG have. They know what they're releasing, and they're making those changes for a reason. Trust them.
Yeah, it's not like they've only been doing this for 6 months. They've been playtesting this for quite some time.
Wait, right. You mean they didn't slap all this together the week before the Kickstarter and go, hey, good enough?
Yeah.
Spaghetti on the wall, that part stuck, so let's publish it?
We're going to call it modern art.
Yeah. Sometimes I think people might say that.
Well, I'll say this, and I was a vocal proponent of I don't like the changes to Shaken when it first came out. And I'll say this, with the status changes that we see as the preview and Flash Gordon, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I love the new statuses.
It makes perfect sense, and it actually works better. It's a better use of bennies to allow people not to just be this catch-all, stun lock, shaken kind of situation.
So,
not that it was that before, but
the interesting thing to me with the addition of the statuses is if we get past the bound, entangled, distracted, vulnerable stuff, and we just look at the new stun status, stunned is the old shaken. You can take no actions until you recover, and when you recover shaken. So you have this repurpose of the original version of the shaken rule. In fact, in all reality, it's a little worse because you can't even do the free and movement actions you used to be able to do under the old Shaken. So they just took the old rule and repurposed it to give us a new status to give back the piece that was missing with the new rule. And now you've got a rule in place that says, if you roll a success, you fucking succeed. Right. You don't feel like you failed despite rolling a success. And I think that is something that is so integral to the philosophy behind most of what they do at PEG. Is if you roll the dice and you see a 4, you see a success laying on the table, your character achieves something.
Right. You win.
Yeah.
A success should be a success, not a...
That's why it's a target number 4.
Mm-hmm.
No, but I agree with what you guys are saying. Is the thing that even regardless of what edition you're looking at with Savage World is so interconnected that one minor change over here requires a rebalancing act. It has a cascading domino effect across the entire game system. So, yeah, you absolutely have to, and we're not going to talk too much more about SWADE for fear of accidentally releasing any kind of NDA issue. But the thing that you have to know, you have to get it in your hands, play it, do it, run at least 5 sessions in it, rules as written, make sure you read the rules and understand them, not just hand wave, blah, 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 blah. I don't like that rule, so I'm not using it. Use all the rules in the book, run 5 sessions, rules as written, and then make a judgment about what you think about the game and how it plays at the table.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see the PEG forums just go just fill up.
Oh, Clint is going to be heads down at that keyboard for months.
Yeah, I would say this time next year, Clint is still going to be answering very basic questions. We're not going to be dealing with the more esoteric stuff that savages are used to, the debates on the forums about, where, you know, people get into the long-winded debates about the rules where there's not a rule as to how it's handled. No, we're going to get, like, the simple questions about very simple, like, there's some rules in this book that are displayed as a flow chart so that you can't make any mistakes anymore. You know, like, everything in the book is done well, but I still think you're going to get people asking the really basic questions even as much as a year out.
I think
you still had that with the old. You still had that with the old editions too. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't understand wounds. Really? 4 points over toughness is a wound. What? Go ahead, Dustin. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say that they were very smart this time around. They released Flash Gordon so that they answered some of those questions first, and now you can just refer back to the Flash Gordon questions.
So let's talk about Ruben, because Ruben always comes in with the IP question. I should put him on the bingo.
You said it, not me.
I should put him on the bingo card as Ruben asks a question about what possible IP would you like to see a setting for.
Center square.
But Ruben answered or asked, with the success of SWADE, what IP settings would you possibly see getting Savage in the future?
I have an answer. You ready? From PEG themselves, I don't think anything for a while. They've got other things on the plate. It ain't going to happen. I think they're done with worrying about IPs and things like that for a little while. I think they're going to get SWADE done, make it awesome, and then they're going to look at some internal stuff. I would think, but I think Shane has said, I think Shane has actually said in the past that they're going to kind of concentrate on some of their in-house stuff for a little while.
I was going to say, they've revealed they have 2 new settings coming, and that's the total of new IPs in the for PEG in the foreseeable future. And like Shane was pretty clear that the Johnny Quest thing that's coming is a ways out, and that Deadlands Dark Ages has been in kind of mothballed development for a decade or more. So I don't expect either of those to hit soon. But I mean, if you're expecting something brand new from PEG, that's what it's gonna be. But those are probably gonna get put behind things like the remake of Deadlands to fit the new rules. I would expect ETU is probably going to come out again since we're seeing the undeclared Twitch stream with that. I would expect that, you know, Ed and the folks at 12 to Midnight are working on that. And that's technically an official product. It's not a licensed product. So I would expect some of those products to come out probably first in line from PEG directly.
Well, I would put this too. If we're talking about IPs, intellectual property, really the only thing they've ever licensed is basically what Pirates of the Spanish Main, right? Yep. That was another outside of the PEG in-house publishing settings. So what I think Ruben may be asking, and you know, allow me to interpret. Ruben, if you want to comment, clarify, feel free in the chat. But I think he's asking not what PEG settings, but what possible other intellectual properties outside of PEG. Like, for example, Flash Gordon being a great example of an IP. Rifts being another example of an IP.
Well, from the licensees, there's so much that's going to be getting remastered as well. That brand new IP is not likely for the minimum of the next 6 months.
Well, I would say it's not likely ever. I mean, PEG does not have a rich history of, oh, we're going to secure this movie franchise IP and turn it into a setting.
No, but even your licensees are coming out with new stuff all the time. You know, you've got. Well,
what I'm saying is we're not going to see Back to the Future Savage Worlds edition.
No, but we did see what was that? The Goon, which was a comic book IP that got brought over as a new IP, and that was you know, a brand new IP next year. That's never existed in the public space. So
right, yeah, and so are we.
You know, yeah, you guys have announced that not the Bureau 13 one, but the SWAT.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Okay, well, let's say, you know, money's not an issue, and I can spend $250,000 as PEG and go get a popular IP. What would each one of us like to see IP'd to Savage Worlds?
Die Hard.
I can't say I disagree.
Savage Die Hard.
I can't say I disagree. I know BattleTech is a pipe dream. Forget it. It's never going to happen, right, Dave? I mean,
so I have done BattleTech with Savage Worlds, but unfortunately, BattleTech is not a role-playing game.
Right.
BattleTech is a tabletop tactical war game, and MechWarrior was the role-playing game that went with it, and it fucking sucked. I mean, I don't think I met anybody who actually liked it, especially within the BattleTech community, because it's like they took here's the way the mechanics work for BattleTech and completely 180 reversed them, and they work the opposite for MechWarrior. So it just melted your brain. But no, if I had to pick something, it's difficult because I know the things that I want to work on. But if it was an established IP, I can guarantee you through the Adventurers Guild, what we're going to see is a lot of Star Wars and Firefly with the serial numbers filed off. We're gonna probably see Robotech with the serial numbers filed off. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I fully expect to see in the next year in the Adventurers Guild. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Robotech, a lot of the more popular IPs that already have an established role-playing game that people don't enjoy are going to rapidly come out for Adventurers Guild. As far as like what I want to see, well, there's this really great video game that came out in the last month or so. And I think that if someone were to savage it with a twist, it would be really, really fucking cool.
Oh, I think that's been done. I think that's been done already.
Which one are you talking about, Dave?
It's got this Western theme.
Something like an RDR2 or something like that.
With trains.
Yeah, something about robbing trains or banks or I don't know, horses.
Do you think that like the characters can find some kind of redemption by the end of it?
No, not unless they're dead and covered in blood.
Oh yeah. So we're obviously talking about paying my little leg.
And they'd all be dead.
Right.
Wouldn't they? Okay.
Yeah, that's the only way you get redemption is you get dead.
There's only
red.
There's only like 3 settings that already do that in Savage Worlds. So.
Yeah.
How about you, Dustin?
Me, in all honesty, I'm kind of hoping that they take the plunge and start doing all the Palladium stuff, like splicers. Don't die, Dave.
I mean, Clint only said no when that was asked to him last week.
I know, but I'm holding out.
So we're talking, wish list.
Wish list, yeah, like pipe dreams and all. So yeah, things like Nightbane, splicers, those are fun concepts, and I really do expect some serial numbers filed off for swag. Hopefully that'll fly without any trouble. But yeah.
Well, no, we're talking about them like going out and buying the IP, getting the rights to it, just like Fantasy Flight did with Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I kind of like to see Sliders. I used to love that. I love that show, Sliders. Sliders would make a great Savage Worlds game.
I mean, I think
Savage Mojo kind of does that already, don't they?
With Suzerain, they changed some major mechanics. However, I did actually run Shanghai Vampacalypse, and I tailored it down to be a regular Savage Worlds game. Like I sort of like field stripped it, and it was fun. Like they do really write some good like settings and adventures. It's just I don't like how the Suzerain sort of changes some of the basic core mechanics.
Right.
I'm gonna drop a bomb, and I'm gonna go 2 different versions with this. I think licensing the Fallout video game series would be fantastic.
Oh, that would be really cool.
As an established IP, bring it over to Savage Worlds.
Yeah, just don't do it right now because the fans are a little pissy.
That what I'm saying with that is there's going to be a lot of comparisons to this. Well, this isn't the video game. Of course not, dipshit. It's a tabletop role-playing game. Oh, I don't like it. It's different. Shut up. I would say that would be interesting. Well, no, it's like this guy. Guys go overseas. I'm gonna go to Puerto Vallarta. What do you mean? There's no Burger King? I want a fucking hamburger, man. Shut up. You're in Puerto Vallarta. Eat the local cuisine. Of course it's not the same. That's why people travel. Anyway, I would say Fallout would be very interesting to do as a port over as established IP. I think it would rock the role-playing game world if Peg pursued the Lord of the Rings license. That's my mic drop. What IP setting would I like to see them do? I'd like to see them get and franchise Lord of the Rings as a tabletop role-playing game.
See, I mean, if you're going to drop something like that, you almost have to, swing for the fucking fences. Fucking Marvel.
I was about to say, money's no issue. What IP would you like to see?
Yeah. Money's no issue, and Peg has full reign. They already have an entire established superpowers system and a lot of experience with running campaigns and shit in it. Picking up Marvel would be phenomenal. Especially, right now, while the fans haven't hit comic book movie fatigue hard enough, that the RPG fans are going to be turned off of it. RPG fans will still be interested long after the general public gets comic book fatigue.
Right.
Very true.
All right. Anything else in the chat as far as an open issue, open topic we want to talk about?
Not really. I'm watching.
Listing off. Yeah.
So on that note, I guess the question I kind of have for the panel is, since each one of us is kind of in that privileged position of working on something that's coming out in the future, but we also are gamers ourselves. What do you see coming down the pipe from other licensees that has you excited? Like, you know, when I see some of the stuff that's out there, like Wise Guys or Trailer Park Shark Attack, like I'm really excited to see what comes from those.
You know, why don't we take a minute to look at the Jumpstarts list, because PEG actually did include. They're including Jumpstarts. Is there anywhere we can find a list of that?
Right on the Kickstarter page, they've got. If you scroll to the bottom, they've got the freaking whole list. And I want to say it was 2 a day for the entire length of it. So it's like 60 announced Jumpstarts, and I believe the rule was that each company only got to list one, even if they were doing multiples. So I think you're going to see.
But Jumpstarts, that's not a stretch goal. That's just advertising.
I don't know about all that.
That comment pissed me off.
There is a playable adventure in every Jumpstart.
Yeah.
That means that effectively there are 60 plus playable adventures. 60 plus playable adventures.
Yeah, if you are a Savage Worlds fan, basically every major announced licensed IP is releasing an adventure that will be out shortly after the book is in your hands. That is a monumental thing that PEG pulled off to get all of the licensees on board the way they did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, so you said what are we looking forward to? And not just because I want to be able to stay on the show and it's you guys, but having played Dead End, I'm really excited to see what you guys have done with it, because I haven't seen it in a couple of years.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's been a couple of years since you actually played with it.
Yeah, and so I'm really excited to see what you got.
All you had to do was ask. You'll get a much more complete version of it than what's going out the Jumpstart.
I was hoping I could get my hands on something. But yeah, I'm excited for that. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm excited. Here's one thing I'm interested. I'm more interested than excited. I want to see how Interface Zero works with SWADE.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see if it makes that transition.
Well,
from being like uber chunky,
making the transition.
I gotta tell you this, and I know I might be committing heresy when I say this, but whenever I ran a Star Wars game, Interface 2.0 was the place I would go to get what I needed to run a Star Wars game, because like their hybrids are effectively aliens. They've got androids that you can play as, bioroids, all that kind of stuff. You can just it works for playing Star Wars, and so I'm gonna go to confessional now.
So if you have bioroids, don't they have a cream for that?
Yes. You also get a weird barcode tattoo.
Okay.
Hopefully,
I'm like, man, I'm not sitting too comfortably. I got baroids.
I feel like some of the changes will definitely affect how Interface Zero is played. I kind of like what, again, I know this is horrible and I probably shouldn't do this, but whenever I played Interface Zero, I sort of just went with the basic Savage Worlds a lot. You know, for those of you who have played it, there's some changes to fatigue and changes to wounds in certain situations, which I felt was superfluous. You know, didn't really need.
So, I mean, stuff like that, to a certain extent, like I'm interested to see it, but I'm not excited about it because I wasn't a fan, and I don't think pretty much anybody on the panel was a fan of the way Interface 2.0 really came out. We all kind of felt like the book was a little too big, a little too clunky. You know, and I think that they got some pushback from even their fans that were like, we love all the lore, but by God, I want to be able to actually run the game in the same time like it takes me to run Savage Worlds, not more Pathfinder-esque in delivery. But
I never got through Interface 2.0. I could never get through the whole book to read it. It was like, for me, I mean, the lore stuff was even too much.
I felt it was picky and choosy. Like, you couldn't read the whole thing. Like, you had to get like the basic gist of this is what's happening in the world, and then you had to pick a spot, because that's what a lot of people would do, is they try to ingest everything, but you got to pick like, well, this is where I want to play this game in, and the world is kind of contained within itself.
So you focus down in on that one spot.
Yeah, you got to drill down. You got to drill down, and if you don't, you're going to be lost.
So let me ask this question. Does Interface Zero suffer from trying to hold itself up to something like Deadlands, which has, 10 years of established content, and they tried to drop all that content like in a book?
So Interface Zero
problem really kind of comes in?
Interface Zero, you have Interface 01 and you have Interface 2.0, and we're going to be moving into Interface 3.0. And they do try to do the whole Deadlands thing. In fact, they even give you a little nod. You can play a virtual game on the inside where you're actually playing Deadlands.
I don't know. Dave presents a good question. Is it too much information dump and overload for a setting book to be that dense?
Well, they do have actual dense books like that are not quite. They have like specific world settings, like they have Texas, and then they have Phoenix, and then they have New York, which is the reclamation zone. They have, and they do kind of go overboard. But
not only that, there's also the interplanetary colonization.
Yeah,
I mean, there is a massive amount of stuff there. Here's just my overall critique of Interface 2.0. And I was a backer of the Kickstarter when it originally came out. And I couldn't get through the book because it seems to be it seems to collapse under the weight of its own impetus and trying to be this huge grand scale that covers everything, and it doesn't necessarily have a consistent focus. There's chunks of it that work incredibly well. There's chunks of it that I'm like, oh yeah. But as a whole, it's too much. It's like getting a slice of birthday cake or seeing a birthday cake and going, oh my God, that is amazing. Look at how ornately decorated it is. And then you get a slice of it and it's 12 inches of frosting and that much cake. And it's just like, no, oh God, no. This is way more than I needed for a birthday cake.
I think that's what it is. It's like, they give you have to slice through parts of it. You really do. And I think that's the part that people don't do, is they try to eat the whole thing, and you can't have the whole cake. You've got to slice out parts. One interesting bit, people will always go into the cyberware section and they're like, it doesn't list strain, or it doesn't talk about strain. And I had like an hour-long conversation, and finally we crack open the Sci-Fi Companion, and we're like, we smack our heads because strain is in the Sci-Fi Companion, but it's not in the Interface Zero book. And we'd gotten into this idea that Interface Zero just encompassed everything. It had become the new Sci-Fi Companion to us without us even realizing it. And that's sort of like the thing that's where it kind of stubs its toe a little.
Yeah, I think it suffers from some rules specialization where it's not necessarily needed, or to where it adds to the setting. But
it's best played if you just sort of take a little bit of that rule specialization out and sort of get the flavor of it. Otherwise, you'll get bogged down. And I think that's what the people that got mad about it.
But that defeats the point of having a setting book, right? I mean, doesn't it? Like, this should be a complete setting. You shouldn't have to buffet style it.
I'm suffering from a complete overload of doing Westerns lately. So the immediate phrase that jumped into my head is all hat and no cattle.
Hat, yeah.
It's this idea that if your setting book is thicker than the core rules necessary to run it, you've probably included something you didn't need in a setting book. And if it takes you 30 compendiums to release your information, more than likely you have more information than the players need to play the game. And maybe that's a reaction from having gone through the whole TSR era of D&D, where you had to buy, every tome under the sun before it even got to the Pathfinder thing where you buy trunks full of books. But, the idea that you had to have the Fighters book and the Elf book and so on and so forth so that you could just know that elves did reverie in trees with their eyes open. What? Like, it doesn't actually affect the game at all. And it's great knowledge to have, like, in a novel. Someone wrote a ton of backstory, but it's not game facing. And unfortunately, when you put it into a game facing document, it ends up being all hat, no cattle.
Right.
Well, I think that really what it comes down to it is they could have gotten by with just having races, just having some of their edges. That they've got this interesting cost of living mechanic, which I thought was pretty cool, but really it wasn't something that you needed. They could have streamlined it. I'm not going to deny that.
Well, I think what Dave and I are kind of keying in on, and this is nothing against Jarvis or the game company. I mean, to release that much material,
I would say they did a ton of work,
and to do that much work shows their true passion for the genre and the game. I'm not shitting on their intent at all.
It just being critical doesn't mean you have anything against them.
Right,
it's
but
just issue of it's very dense and you have to take it in bits.
It seems like what really should have been 90% of that was released, what really should have been world building developer notes and InDesign developer notes while it was in beta, just all got poured into here's the setting.
Yeah.
And just info dump.
To a certain extent, there's that. There's also, if that was your Bible, you've over-generated content.
Yeah.
If that is the information that you created through the course of, say, a 30-book series of novels, okay. But I mean, part of it, to a certain extent, like, we hold up some of these great works as, like, the greatest thing that ever existed. You get, like, Lord of the Rings, where he created multiple languages. Like, he did tons and tons of research and world building to write effectively 4 books.
Yeah. Created an entire language. And
he actually wrote both Elven and Orcish as complete functional languages since he was a linguist by trade.
And because of that, now we're going to have to, whenever Peg gets the IP, include the Elvish and Orcish translations.
I'm gonna amend my statement. If Peg can't get the, we're talking about, total pipe dream, Lord of the Rings, maybe that's a little exceeding grasp. Then at least Dragonlance.
Yeah.
I loved Dragonlance.
Well, because it's so beloved. The characters in it, people who are hardcore gamers from the back of the day would just glom onto that. Like, oh God, yes, I want to play Dragonlance. But
see, I was never a fan. I read the books and whatnot. I'm aware of it, but it never grabbed me the way it did everybody else. I was a big fan of the little, like, pocket setting called Thunder Rift that they never did anything with. But I thought Thunder Rift was just fucking amazing.
I kind of like the pocket settings too, Dave. Like, I know I've said it and it sounds ridiculous, but I'm really excited for the mini settings we've got coming out.
Yeah, Deadlands Dark Ages sounds really interesting, especially since, as I understood the Deadlands lore, there was a big shamanic ritual that ripped the veil that causes the trickle that leads into Ravaged Earth and Noir and whatnot that happens after the 1800s. But how are we going to go back into the Middle Ages and do a Deadlands setting?
So actually, I do know how they did that. The issue is that in the Middle Ages, there was sort of like this gateway open, and that's where you get your like European style folklore. The New World hadn't been discovered. The ritual takes place before, and because it takes place before, you have Herods and zombies and so on and so forth all over the world. But when they close the door, then we get the Age of Reason, and the monsters go away, and then it opens back up. At least that's my suspicion.
And yeah, it'll be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it, just to see what, like you said, Dave, just to see what the heck are you going to do with it? How's it going to work?
Well, that, and let's be fair, there's not a quote-unquote traditional Western fantasy that is the carte blanche fantasy for Savage Worlds. There's a lot of different fantasy products out there. I mean, you've got Hellfrost, you've got Winter Eternal now, you've got the Blackwood, you've got Shaintar, which seems to be a big fan favorite to a lot of people because it kind of replicates the feel of, say, a Pathfinder or a Faerun-esque D&D world, that real high fantasy kind of a thing. So, I mean, there's a lot of different fantasy that's existed, but we've never had kind of the carte blanche from Peg, this is what fantasy looks like in a Pinnacle product. And I think that in and of itself would be interesting. And then just setting it in the Deadlands world, they're starting to do something that I thought was almost defined by the whole everything runs on one set of rules. Is now you've got this pillar where you've got something that happens in the Middle Ages, you've got something that happens in the Victorian era, you've got something that happens in the 1930s and 40s, you've got the far-flung future. That is a great continuity to let players play with.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but two of them that I'm looking forward to are Bureau 13 and then the new version of Darwin's World.
Yeah. Plug Chris's product again. No. Bureau 13 looks amazing.
It is a classic, man. It goes way back. Kind of quirky, though.
Yeah, back into the 80s.
Yeah, there was in the old Shark Bites magazine, there was actually an article where somebody did a conversion of them. But to see it fleshed out into like a full-on product, that's pretty cool. And if any of you guys are wondering, RPG Objects originally released Darwin's World as a D20 product, and they had a Savage Worlds product. Now Misfit Studios taken on partnership, and we're getting Darwin's World, the Nuclear Edition, which is effectively Fallout. It's a very gritty kind of post-apocalyptic setting.
I was going to ask you, Phil. I thought I remembered it being post-apocalyptic. I actually, I mean, I'd seen that around, but that's one I've never read. I don't have the book, so that's not one I'm familiar with.
I'm a crazy Fallout fan, so I have a copy of it, and I actually went back and bought some of the D20 products to try and like work them in terms of adventures and just sort of like reskin what I could of the characters. It's very brutal. It's very gritty. RPG Objects also has another one called Abandon All Hope, which is a space horror. I would say if you guys wanted to play that, you would probably pick up Iron Gate and then add some horror elements in there. But yeah, they've got some really cool products. That
I actually think Iron Gate's going to be fun. I mean, I've read it. I have my PDF of it.
I have my PDF, but I haven't got my book yet.
Right. I think that'll be fun to run.
So
yeah.
I have a confession to make with Iron Gate. Is I didn't back it, but I almost feel bad for the people who backed it at the physical level because they haven't received the physical book yet, and Jody has said that it's going to ship soon. There are people who are going to receive the PDF of the new version of the rules before they receive their physical copy of Iron Gate, which will basically be deprecated. They'll have to try to follow the conversion guide to use Iron Gate with what they've already received at that point. So I kind of feel bad for some of the people in that regard. It's one of those things that smacks of you didn't want to delay Iron Gate any further. The fans really wanted that content, and you didn't want to leave a dead spot. But at the same time, like, anytime you got the last product that comes out before the revamp, it always ends up being a little bittersweet.
I feel you, because I'm one of those people that hasn't got their physical copy yet, and I'm just waiting on it. But I do really like the idea of like the whole prison planet kind of setting.
And I don't think it's going to take very much work at all. It's going to be minimal from what I remember from my read through of it to run it with the current the new set.
And again, brushing very close to the NDA, I don't think it's going to take a lot of work as a GM to run any of the existing material with SWADE.
Right.
But it is a complete, like, you've got to change the way your brain thinks about the game.
Sure.
That, I think, is going to be the bigger issues. I think there's going to be a lot of people who, for the first several months, are playing an amalgam of the new rules of the old based on what they remember in the moment to run at the table.
Right, exactly. And then they can go back afterwards and look that up and go, oh, that's how it works now. Yeah.
So Ruben contributed another question. So he writes, we have a few companions, including a new martial arts companion popping up. Is there a companion existing or not existing you want to see?
I'm excited about the one that he mentioned. I mean, I know that's a cheap answer and a cop-out, but I think that'll be kind of fun, depending on what they do with it. I don't know about any other companions. I mean, to me, they've got them pretty much covered. I mean, you got fantasy, horror, sci-fi, and now you're gonna have martial arts. I mean, I don't know.
Martial arts to me almost feels superfluous. I really don't know if it's necessary. I think it's going to add a lot of interesting and cool mechanics, but again, to a certain extent, fighting is one of those selling points of the system. And now we're going to release an entire book just dedicated to basically one skill. That seems a bit nuts. So I'm not as excited about that one as you are, Chris. But to be fair, you had just backed not that long ago that other Kung Fu game that had its resurgence. So you know that gives you the ability to do that same thing, but in Savage Worlds, which we all kind of know is your baby.
Right. And it might be useful for something far down the line for SWAT. I'll just say that.
Okay, guys, I gotta say this. I know it's a little bit of a divergent, but Super Genius Games, one of their jump starts is called Solid, the Savage Blaxploitation Experience. Mm-hmm. So I'm expecting between the Martial Arts Companion and Solid to literally have about a dozen Black Dynamite games show up.
Shaft and Black Dynamite.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like, it's gonna happen, y'all. It's gonna happen.
And I see in the chat that somebody said a pulp companion. To me, that's the core rules.
I was gonna say that would be what's known as Savage Worlds core.
But I will tell you this.
That's just my feeling on it. I mean, you could probably really do a pulp companion where you focus in on that 1930s pulpy era, maybe. But a lot of that stuff, I know we say it all the time, you can just get from core.
I don't think that they need to add any new rules or edges. I think for a pulp companion, all they would need is a bestiary. That's all that you're like in the original pulp companion. That's all that you really needed was the bestiary.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do with pulp.
Mhm.
I mean, it could warrant a companion. I'm not outside of the scope on it. I would say, and I hate to say this, but there should almost be a Age of Sail companion. As much as people love pirates, and not to divert sales from a fine game like Buccaneer Through Hell and High Water, but there's so many questions that pop up all the time, like how do you run a pirate game? How do you run a pirate game? How do you run a pirate game? Either that, I think maybe like a fill-in kind of compendium that kind of covers nuts and bolts from running pirates to maybe doing steampunk.
Yeah.
Victorian era steampunk as a setting kind of companion.
Where I kind of come down on the companion thing is I'm almost anti-companion. Like, there's some great products out there, like the Triple Ace Games toolkits they've got like Tales of the Sprawl and Tales of the Space Lanes and stuff like that do great. And then there's a lot of great settings out there, like Buccaneer Through Hell and High Water, that if you want to run pirates, pick that up. And even if you don't want to run in that world, it's got all the rules you need to run pirates. If you want to run steampunk, grab Steamscapes Asia. You don't have to play in Steamscapes Asia, but it has all the steampunk rules you need. Like, right. There's, to a certain extent, releasing the companions makes the stuff that the licensees are releasing almost nothing but lore books. Right. And I don't mean this to be, upsetting to Peg or anything, but Peg's a little specific on like how much you can reuse their rules and how much you can put in the book and how much you can create and diverge from certain things. Like, there's some pretty specific agreements that the licensees have to go through to release those products. And for Peg to then turn around and kind of knock their legs out from underneath them by releasing and here's the official rules for Savage Worlds Fantasy or Savage Worlds Supers or Savage Worlds Sci-Fi, kind of means if you're the guys making Interface Zero, you have to find a reason for players to use your version of Sci-Fi instead of the official version of Sci-Fi that came in that companion. Right. And to me, there's a that's just it's something that kind of runs counter to the way Peg actually operates as a company. They want to foster people to want to play their way and to go play Pirates of the Spanish Main and Buccaneer Through Hell and High Water, because both are good products.
Yeah, combine stuff. Take stuff out of both.
Well, I think the companions are kind of like an outdated concept. I almost want to say the whole idea that there's another set of specific rules for running horror that go along with the core rules. I almost agree. I would rather see Peg diverge in another arena and do a Game Master series. Like, here's a book on game mastering pulp, and have it be a Game Master guide that references things like, go take a look at Ravaged Earth for some great settings, and maybe drives people, makes them aware.
I would take it a step further and just release like a Game Master's 101 that doesn't say, here's how to game master pulp as an entire book, but like, here's a couple chapters on pulp.
Right. Maybe an anthology series.
Horror. Yeah. Here's a couple chapters on running
sci-fi.
Detectives, sci-fi, etc. Because there's some things that honestly don't need a new rule. You don't need a new rule to run a mystery in Savage Worlds. But there's a lot of like actual knowledge as a game master that's required to run an effective mystery. That's not a rule. It's how do you present the clues to your players? How do you set up a puzzle properly? How do you set up things to be interesting without too much foreshadowing? How do you go through that process? That is a lot more useful, in my opinion, to a GM than here's another twisted version of the dramatic task, or here's another new rule for siege engines, which is really just a change to mass battles. We don't need tweaked versions of core rules or more rules. We need more information about how to take, oh, you want to do X? Well, here's how you do that with a social conflict. Now here's another paragraph on how to do it with a dramatic task. Here's a third paragraph that talks about using quick encounters to do it. You break down how to use the mechanics we have to achieve these different things.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like, come out with a game master's companion that breaks it down, and maybe it has a small little section from a licensee that's got a specific setting that says, hey, for example, we were talking about Interface Zero before. So it's like, hey, there's a lot of great products out there from licensees. If you want to run a cyberpunk game, here's a 5-page insert in this game from a developer of Interface Zero talking about how to run Interface Zero or run that kind of game as a game master, not necessarily talking about specific rules from their setting or from the core setting. But I agree with Dave. I think there's. I would like to see PEG branch out and come out with a game master's companion. To like, hey, here's how you run this stuff. But
could be interesting.
Hashtag Section 8 Ghost.
That's right.
Hashtag Section 8 Ghost.
Sir, if you were in the green room, you'll understand that reference. By the way, if you'd like to participate in the green room, all you got to do is pledge at a certain rank and level at the Savage Worlds Game Master Podcast Patreon.
Like $5 a month to get into the green room.
Yeah, early access, early release to the podcast and the stream.
Yeah. Speaking of which, for those who keep posting to the links asking what's going on, this broadcast is live on Thursday nights. And then it goes behind the Patreon wall until the following Tuesday. You will not see it before that time frame on YouTube because the patrons get that stuff. The guys who help us pay for things like the hosting.
And special access to the Ass Hattery that happens the half hour before we go live at a certain level.
They help us come up with the hashtags.
That's right.
So anything, I mean, we're getting close to the 8 o'clock hour. Anything else we want to discuss? Anything in the
not that I'm seeing.
Chat? Anybody wants to throw in last minute?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so Ruben, once again, Rule Building Guides feels like it could be that GM Guide series. Yeah, I mean, PEG used to do this back in the day. They called them toolkits instead of companions. And it had a world builder for that genre, a bestiary, a gear for that genre, and a overall companion game mastering section for that genre. All that material still holds up. Even if you can find it out of print, it still holds up because it talks about design philosophy and application of the rules. Stat blocks don't mean shit in Savage Worlds.
Right, yeah.
We all know that if we've played Savage Worlds for any point in time. What skills does an extra have? D6 and everything. Go.
D8 if they're good at it.
So, yeah.
Before we go off the air, Art's asking, because of Turkey Day, he's assuming we're not going to have a podcast until 2 weeks from now. We didn't used to be on Thursdays.
That's true. This is the first time we come around on a Thursday. We might have to do a Black Friday podcast.
We'll do our special Alice's Restaurant edition.
Well, you will be.
Hey, you know what? Let's decide now. I'm game for a Thursday night Thanksgiving Day Turkey Day.
Mommy-less on Thanksgiving.
How about Black Friday? How about Black Friday?
It depends. I don't know that I'll be available then either. I'm not really good around the holidays. I got shit going on.
I mean, I'm fine with taking a week off, guys. I've got a little game I have to finish before the online portion comes out.
Wait, a week without a podcast? I don't. What?
Yeah, I know you can't understand this. You can't wrap your head around it. It might lead to less gray hairs in that beard, though.
That's possible. By the way, this is coming off December 1st. So I'll just go ahead and make that announcement. Yeah, I couldn't shave the beard off during prostate testicular cancer awareness month for no shaving. Come on.
Yeah, the whole chin strap thing is really bothering me. It's very douchey, but it can't come off until next month.
Okay, so I guess we will not be having a broadcast on Thursday, Thanksgiving. Hey, gobble gobble, motherfucker. That's the way it goes.
That's right. That's right.
Go play chickens in the mist.
There you go.
I'll be playing board games that night.
Nothing else. Break out and play some Cards Against Humanity. I'll tell you what I may do for the followers of the show or on Patreon. We may just run if anybody's down, we may run a Friday night Thanksgiving sort of one shot. Or I will run a Black Friday evening one shot. For the
I will let you send that out to the patrons and get a sign up going and manage that. And I will happily sit in and watch if I'm not busy.
Can you screen share like back in the old days for the Savage Saturday nights?
I could probably do a screen share because even if I'm not actually available, I can just turn it on to screen share and walk the hell out of the room.
Okay, well, cool. So if we have nothing else in the chat, then until next time, this is Jared Savage Daddy Gunning for Chris, Dave, and Dustin saying keep rolling and stay savage. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. See you in 2 weeks.